What up? What up? What up? Hello and welcome everyone to this 27th episode of the Backwards K Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Chris Asbrock, and I'm joined every episode by my co-host, Scott Kaiser. Scott, my man, Happy New Year for starters. We're back, man. We're back in 2025 to talk some baseball.
We're back, and ball is only a month away, my man. I cannot wait. Get rid of this snow. Let's get back to the grind.
The funny part is we literally text every single day, and we were just like, was it a couple days ago? I was like, show Monday, and we're both like, you're like, you're out. I'm like, oh yeah, God, me too. I was thinking it. Like, we got so much to talk about, man.
The timing of the holidays and the way the snow and everything had just kind of moved everything, and it felt right to come back. Like I said, we've got just over a month until pitchers and catchers report. That sweet time and Valentine's Day. That's the only reason we should remember and celebrate Valentine's Day for pitchers and catchers reporting, and we're almost there, baby. Cannot wait. In fact, we realize that we have quite a bit to catch up on in the last month that we've been away. Little more transactions. We've got all kinds of things to catch you guys up on. Lots of trades, lots of signings, some not so many signings amongst our teams because, it's been a month and the Braves are still not doing anything. But we're not going to dwell on that. We're going to dwell on what has happened and what is about to happen. We've got maybe one of the biggest pitchers of the offseason, a Japanese import about to make his decision, so our timing couldn't be any better. Chris, where would you like to kick things off to start this show? Should we just go all the way back to the beginning? Should we just take it back to the beginning? Let's just do that.
Oh, shit, I got to go all the way down. I realize
that's fine. I'm ready to go. So last time we spoke, the last thing we kind of got into was the Garrett Crochet heading to Boston trade. Yep. And then certainly, sure enough, right after that, a couple of bigger trades of the offseason went down. The Yankees pulling the trigger, bringing Devin Williams in from Milwaukee. They send over Nestor Cortez and a backup infielder back over to Milwaukee for Devin Williams. Devin Williams, the perennial all-star closer last year, had that back injury for the first half of the season, but then came back, slowly worked his way in. They didn't pitch him on back-to-back days, but as deadly as ever. Hate to admit it, but solid signing or trade for the Yankees. Anytime you can get a pitcher of Williams' caliber and you do it for a trade chip and Nestor Cortez, that he's fine. He's a guy, nothing special. He spiked a few years ago, as far as I'm concerned, as far as what he's capable of. But Devin Williams, all-star. This team needed a closer after losing theirs and Clay Holmes, and unfortunately, they got one of the best ones in the game. So your thoughts on the Yankees trading for Devin Williams?
Yeah, it sucks. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. I'm with you on that one. But no, in all seriousness, like you said, it's a great trade. Now, I do think in terms of Milwaukee getting back Nestor Cortez, and you said that you think he had peaked a couple years ago or a couple seasons ago. I think this could be a situation where a change of scenery might be huge for him. I still think, adding for some reason, these guys they pick it up in Milwaukee, and I don't get it. But I think Cortez, he does have a lot to offer, and I think he's going to be a stable piece in that rotation, for Milwaukee. But, for both teams, it's a great trade. And like you said, Scott, the Yankees needed a closer, and they went out and got the best one. And, of course they did. Why not? But, again, solid trade. I mean, they had to get it done. And I do have to give Brian Cashman props because, after missing out on Soto, there was multiple alleys that they had to go down and multiple positions they had to address and needs. And they did it with one of them here. And with more, obviously, down the road that we're going to talk about here, coming up here in the next little bit. But starting it off, though, great trade by Brian Cashman. I hate it because it's the Yankees, but, it's great job. I mean, there's nothing more you can really say. Devin Williams is, he's that anchor to that bullpen, and exactly what the Yankees needed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to root against him, but
Oh, totally, yeah.
Is one of the best in the game, I think. Not to be outdone, there had been rumors, but the Astros finally pulling the trigger. Looks like they assumed the worst when it came to being able to re-sign Kyle Tucker. So Kyle Tucker shipped out of Houston on his way to the Cubs. In Chicago, the Astros get back Isaac Paredes along with a package of prospects and Hayden Wesneski, who's shown flashes, but doesn't matter. Kyle Tucker's the centerpiece of this deal. Cubs get a huge piece for their offense that has struggled the last couple of years. Kind of surprising for the Astros, considering they let Bregman walk this winter. It seemed like they were geared up to make a run at Kyle Tucker, but my guess is they had those preliminary conversations, and it was either we're going to test the waters in free agency no matter what, or an astronomically high number. Tucker was hurt a lot last year, so after he fouled that ball off his shin, Astros were kind of odd about the way they reported things, and it went from he'll be out for a couple of days to he didn't play the whole half of the season. It was a real strange occurrence, but when Tucker's on, top 5, top 10 player in the game.
Every bit, yeah.
Does everything you could ask for. Great at all the stuff. And so the Cubs get, I believe, what is this, 2-year rental for them? He's a free agent after next season?
I think you're correct.
Yeah, he's not. I think this is not his free agent year, but next year will be. And great move for the Cubs. Great,
hell of a move.
Perfect move for the Cubs.
Yeah. You know what? Kyle Tucker's one player that I just, I don't want to say I overlook him, but I overlook him. He quietly does his thing incredibly well.
Yes.
He's not like a standout like a Juan Soto or a Mike Trout or anything like that. But it's like next thing you know, you're like, damn, like Kyle Tucker's doing damage, and it's like
he's not a household name.
Yeah.
There's nothing flash about him, even within that Houston teams. I mean, you hear plenty about Alvarez, and you obviously hear a whole lot about Altuve over the years, and Correa when he was there. But Tucker has quietly, snuck in there, just posted, and done his thing. I mean, if you go look at the numbers, constant 30 threat, high batting average, everything, every bit a top 10 player, like I mentioned before. There's not much vocality surrounding him. I mean, I imagine that'll change in Chicago. Chicago is starving for somebody who could kind of take that mantle and ride that. They're always looking for stars there in a place like Chicago, and they had some more vocal guys when Chris Bryant was there, and that team that won that World Series, they kind of had some personalities, but the teams they've amassed the last couple of years have just kind of missed that alpha dog. Like they've had some good players there, but there's nobody there that you kind of really feared. Even when they had Bellinger, who we'll talk about in a minute, who's on the way out the door. It seemed like they were missing something like a Kyle Tucker. So good for Chicago and for Houston. They are clearly trying to toe the lines on a full rebuild and kind of still trying to stay relevant. We'll see how things kind of work out for them moving forward, but they didn't get better on the field from this trade in the short term. So, well,
exactly. I mean, it was a heavy price to pay for Chicago, but man, they did a hell of a job with this. And in all seriousness, it's kind of elevated them to maybe the top team in the division. I mean, we'll, here coming up, the next couple episodes, we're going to be starting our division preview. So we'll kind of get into it a little more, but I mean, as of right now, I mean, the Cubs are a top 2 team in the NL Central. So, I mean, they got their guy, and he's one that if he's healthy, if he can stay on that field, man, he's going to do a lot of work in Wrigley Field, and it's great for him. So
yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, not saying that he had troubles hitting hitting from the left side there in Houston because they have a short porch there, but I think he's going to feast in Wrigley. Like I really like that. I really like that ballpark for Kyle Tucker.
Yeah,
no stepping back, and with the exit or with the entrance rather of Kyle Tucker there in Chicago, it meant the exit of Cody Bellinger, who became expendable, and almost immediately the rumor mill started churning, and it was the Yankees again who were the ones who came out on top, I guess, of the Cody Bellinger sweepstakes. They get him from the Cubs. Cubs get back Cody Poteet, and Yankees get a little bit of cash along with Bellinger. This one is fine. I like it actually. Honestly, I like it more for the Cubs. I thought it was foolish for them to re-sign Bellinger after he kind of reestablished his value. I didn't like that they gave him the contract extension after that 1 year, because then, well, we kind of saw what it was. He went back to just kind of being himself, and it's not. I think we're done expecting any more return to the MVP form of Cody Bellinger. He is what he is at this point, which is a solid everyday ball player who can flash and be a productive member of a winning team, but he's just not the superstar level any longer. And so maybe the Yankees catch lightning in a bottle for this year. And when you want to talk about somebody being able to stay healthy, that's a huge part of it with Bellinger. Last year did not stay healthy, struggled to stay healthy in his later years with the Dodgers there. And the Yankees are getting up there in age. There'll be another addition here in a minute. We'll talk about that. Just keep on adding age. But what are your thoughts on Bellinger going to New York?
Yeah, I mean, it was expected. I mean, it was the long rumored, deal all along this entire offseason. Finally happened. I mean, Cashman had to go out there and get a guy in the outfield. So he did. So, I mean, they got their center fielder. It's going to allow Jason Dominguez to play left, and obviously Aaron Judge, to play out in right field. So, I mean, they got what they needed again. Again, they just don't believe in getting younger in New York. They just continue to, to bring in aging players. But, Cody Bellinger, excuse me, was one player that it seemed like, I don't know, like his drop was really quick. He had, his time when, with the Dodgers, MVP level. And then it just seemed like he fell off a cliff, and he fell hard. At least that's what it appears to me. It's weird, but the guy's got talent. Again, if he's another one, he stays healthy, and it might be a change of scenery here for him that he can produce. If he goes out there and posts each and every week or each and every game, week, whatever, the Yankees are going to be in good shape. But yeah, I mean, it was nothing really much outside of a solid deal. I mean, the Cubs upgraded anyway with Tucker coming in prior to Bellinger leaving, so he was expendable. So there you go.
Yeah, and Bellinger, for his part, he had reached out to his agent. He really wanted to be in New York, so that's gotta mean something. You know, in deals like these where it looks like you may be buying low on a guy, the motivation to want to play for the franchise, like really want to play for the franchise that ends up acquiring you, that helps. So, I mean, I wish him all the worst playing there in New York, but a solid deal when you're just looking at the X's and O's for both teams. I think. I don't think that this, even if it doesn't work out numbers wise for him in New York, that New York lost a whole lot in this trade. So it is what it is, and it has the potential to help the Yankees a lot more than hurt them, really.
I mean, the trades we've talked about, I mean, they're solid deals. Not real blown up one-sided deals. I mean, they're good, solid baseball trades.
Yeah, and then things got, a little interesting, because the Astros then came back after moving on from Kyle Tucker. It seemed like, okay, well, maybe they're going to take a step back. Not so fast. They signed one of the higher sought-after free agents, maybe a little bit under the radar from the highest names at the top, but Christian Walker, the first baseman who used to play in Arizona, now signing for 3 years, $60 million in Houston. And they have struggled with first base production for the last couple years. They brought in guys and kind of turned things over there at first, and couldn't find anything that worked, and it kind of were able to ignore it because they're getting so much production from elsewhere. But Christian Walker is no slouch, and him in that lineup with Yordan Alvarez, just as formidable. Not the same type of all-around production that you get from a Kyle Tucker, but offensively, capable enough to replace him. And over the next 3 years, $20 million a year, I think it's an absolute steal of a signing for the Astros. Like a great way to stay relevant, stay competitive, and not break the bank while they're doing it. Now, I'm not sure what this all means. I don't know if they're loading up for a big contract extension for Yordan or what they're going to do, because things are kind of the window's kind of starting to close when we talk about the championship aspirations, and so while this is going to keep it open in a division that, for lack of a better word, is puzzling, because none of the other teams can seem to consistently get their stuff together and keep it together for more than a season at a time. So we'll probably look up in August and be talking about Houston, making another
10-game lead,
making another run, making another run at the World Series potentially. But solid signing for Houston. I like it a lot.
Yeah, but it's another one. What's Houston doing? That's the crazy part about it. You go out there and you deal Kyle Tucker, thinking, okay, well, maybe, Tucker's gone, so maybe they're going to bring back Bregman. Well, that still, as of this time, has not happened, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So then you're like, man, what's going on? Houston's a team, though, that I'm not going to put anything past them. I mean, they're just going to continue to – they're that pain in the ass ball club that – they just don't go away. And again, solid signing, but that one came out of nowhere. It was like, okay, Christian Walker to Houston. All right. Yeah. Didn't see that coming at all. But yeah, that's that was one I fully expected him to end up in New York. I thought that was perfect landing spot for him.
Yeah, no, at the start of the offseason, if I had to have picked somewhere for Christian Walker to land, it would have been the Yankees.
Yeah.
They had a big need over there at first base. Now I know they're going to play Bellinger there, and they did end up getting their first baseman, but if they were going to go out and spend the money, it looked like Christian Walker was a perfect fit. And for $60 million, that'd have been a steal for New York. Hey, quite honestly, if I was New York, I would have signed Christian Walker instead of what they did, but
yeah,
they did what they did. So let's see how it plays out for them. Yeah. We'll get to that just shortly, because the Yankees have been, no shortage of moves this offseason. It seems like they're involved, whether it be a signing or a trade throughout this whole offseason. They're clearly trying to capitalize on what they think is a World Series window that's open despite them losing Soto. So I know this one for you personally, you'll have much more to say on this than I do, because I don't really care, but the Reds and Yankees made a trade. The Reds got Jose Trevino in the trade, and the Yankees received Fernando Cruz. I didn't realize that he went back in Alex Jackson. I think I missed the part where they got Fernando Cruz. I don't think I ever saw the Reds, what they sent back in that deal. It was just Trevino going to the Yankees. So or Trevino going to the Reds rather. So talk about Trevino joining your Reds.
I like it. I think it's a solid deal. The Reds were in the market for a backup catcher, and they had to get one. And the market was quickly kind of drying up on the free agent market, that is. So go out and trade for one. And they got Jose Trevino, who, last year, put up 8 home runs, 28 runs batted in. He batted .215. He's more of a defensive guy. Like, he's going to be your guy that, hopefully, between him and Tyler Stevenson can, basically can work off of each other and, help each other improve. But I think it's a great deal. And I mean, I like Fernando Cruz, but man, when he was on, he was really damn good. When he's not, which seemed to be more often than not, he struggled mightily. So this could be one where, it's a great deal for the Yankees if they can get him fixed. But he's pretty limited as a pitcher, though, in terms of pitch, pitch repertoire. But again, on the Red side of it, I love it. Solid backup catcher, to go in there every time Tyler Stevenson's not going to be behind the plate. So solid move. I really do like this move from Red's perspective.
And then the Yankees went and did the move that I mentioned that it seems kind of head scratching if Walker was available. They went out and got Paul Goldschmidt. Now they only paid $12 million for 1 year, but I think Goldie's best days are behind him.
Way behind him.
And on a team full of guys who have to stay healthy, have to, outside of Judge, have to do everything right to maximize their potential, mostly due to age in a lot of cases. The highest, their biggest name guys are all up there in age. So I don't know, it may come at a huge discount, and maybe Paul has one more good year left in him, and he turns out he's fooled us before and shown us. I just don't see it. So Yankees bringing in Paul Goldschmidt for 1 year. I feel like it's just a big nothing burger. It's very similar to them having brought in what's his name from the Cubs before, who then stayed hurt for the past 2 years.
Oh, Rizzo.
Yes, Anthony Rizzo. Yeah. Same thing, where it's just like I think the writing's on the wall and they're going to get him, but it's New York, so I'll be rooting against Paul Goldschmidt one way or the other.
Well, it was one of those things where, the Reds were connected with him. It's seemingly like his name was brought up in rumors with the Reds. It seemed like every 5 minutes during the offseason. It was like, thank God. I sure as hell didn't want him. I know a lot of Reds fans didn't want him. It's not worth it, especially a guy at that age. He's just, like you said, his best years are long gone. I mean, they're way behind him. He might catch fire for, a couple weeks there in the summer and, might carry him to a few wins, but I don't know. I think
it's just bat speed's just gone.
Yeah,
it's just, and it happens to the best of them.
Exactly.
He had an MVP kind of out of nowhere. What was it? 3 years ago now, 3 seasons removed from the MVP. Yeah, when he, shockingly again, kind of came out of nowhere because people were talking about it back then, and it was like, well, maybe not. But the past 2 seasons have shown that yes, he definitely was on the decline, back end of his career, and at this point, whatever you get out of him is kind of a bonus. Which I mean, $12 million suggests it's not like they broke the bank for him, but you could see this being one of those cases where it's like he ends up sitting there on the roster, and you're wondering why he's even there.
I can see that happening.
Not going to play him as much as you would think, just based on name value alone.
Well, I would also say, devil's advocate here on this. I mean, it's to me low risk, high reward type deal.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, but with the Bellinger thing, you can see it because of the youth, and you're like, well, whatever. But with Goldschmidt, I mean, I don't know. It just I'd rather eat the money on the Walker contract. That's good for just based on age and recent performance.
There's way better options out there, and I just
$20 million.
It's like they settled,
right?
It's like they settled on a lot of stuff. They never went out there and really and were like the Yankees and went out and got the best of the best.
I mean, it's like you trade for Williams, who's top end.
And
the way you filled
that was it, though.
Rest of it, yeah. Now the signings, I mean, you did bring in Fried, and you got to so maybe it's more of a blanket approach that they're trying to take. I think for me, it's just the age. It's the age of the guys that they're taking a flyer on, where it's just like I don't know. You could have gotten a little bit younger and gotten similar or better projection for slightly more. So
what this is going to equal out to is we're sitting here kind of going like this whole offseason for the Yankees has been meh. We're going to be like lighting it up in the middle of July and August, and we're going to be like, man, damn.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be.
With all the old names that we're poo-pooing now.
Exactly. Yeah. You sit there and because I forgot about Fried. It's been so damn long since we've done this show. I'm like, man, I forgot about Max Fried. And obviously, the Devin Williams trade. So there's 2 solid additions. Cody, I mean, it's solid, but I'm not over the moon for it. It's again a great deal for him, but it seems like they settled on some things. I mean, like they settled for Cody Bellinger as opposed to
Yes.
going out and getting like an Anthony Santander, for example.
Well, and they were in the mix for Kyle Tucker, but that didn't work, which I'm glad. That
me too.
A huge boost for New York's chances.
Yeah.
So and maybe it wasn't lack of effort on their part in trying on some of these. Physically, they clearly wanted to bring back Soto and got outbid. They tried to get in there on Tucker and got outbid. So maybe this was the best of a otherwise sideways off season where they just didn't want to sit on their hands, so they had to do something.
It's probably a blessing in disguise on a lot of this, though. I mean, when you kind of look back at it, and
some of the moves you don't make are victories too. So
exactly,
we'll see what it goes. We had talked about on our last show, though, the rumors that Josh Naylor may be getting traded from Cleveland. And we didn't really think a whole lot about it. Maybe it was just a rumor. He's been so productive, and the Guardians have struggled to have consistent offense. So to trade one of their most consistent offensive players of the last few years didn't make much sense, but they did. Josh Naylor on his way to Arizona to spend this season with the Diamondbacks, and the Guardians get back Slade Cecconi, who's a solid pitcher in his own right. And Cleveland has very much made it a priority to round out their pitching staff at every opportunity they get, especially when it comes to trades. And they tend to get hitters through prospect trades and whatnot. So as good as Naylor is, he's a first baseman and he's limited and all the things you can do from being that from that position in his build. So maybe it's not the worst trade in the world. It's just a head scratcher for me, just because the Guardians have done nothing but struggle for the past few years to generate consistent offense. And he was the one kind of like
known commodity. Why the hell not?
Known commodity. It's just odd, but I'm sure, Cleveland is another one of those teams that very much knows what they're doing when it comes to scouting and making trades and stuff like that. And so when they make a trade like this, while it raises my eyebrow, it doesn't super shock me.
No, and it's a deal that Arizona had to make to replace, the loss of Christian Walker. Yeah, I mean, it was, and bringing in Slade
perfect
Cecconi
fit for them, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a good, solid baseball deal. I mean, can't really say much else outside of that, but yeah, Cleveland just seems to. They're kind of like Tampa. They're playing 4D chess. It seems like, while other teams are not playing tiddlywinks or something like that. It's just it's
it's very rare that you see trades in division, but that's just what we had with for the next move. The Phillies bring in Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins. Again, another one that had kind of been rumored down the stretch and near the trade deadline. Jesus Luzardo. When it comes to Miami, pretty much everybody's a trade chip at any given moment in that franchise. So not entirely shocking. But Luzardo, somebody who's up and down and in and out. He can go through stretches where he just looks dominant, then stretches where he gets shelled. And then his biggest bugaboo has got to be the fact that he just can't stay healthy for the most part. Luzardo, for his career, generally tends to miss a healthy amount of time. And if you're Florida, you capitalize on the fact that he had pitched well enough that the Phillies wanted him. Phillies throw him back there, and they're the fifth spot in their bullpen. Marlins get a cavalcade of some minor leaguers, none of which are of note at the moment. But I mean, if you're the Phillies, I think it was an absolute no-brainer to make this move, because I love Luzardo. Yeah. I love Luzardo, especially when he's healthy, which, again, huge maybe, huge if, you never know. But when he's on, he's one of the better strikeout pitchers in the game. In fact, it's kind of weird when he loses it, to be honest with you, because he's so dominant for 3-4 game stretches, and then look completely like he shouldn't be in the majors. So good trade though for Phillies. I like it for them.
Oh, 1,000%. Last year, 66 and 2/3 innings, had 58 strikeouts, 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. he was 3-6. I mean, but that's obviously part of being, the Marlins.
Injured.
Yeah.
Well, and he was injured. I mean, he struggled.
Well, yeah. I mean,
like
but
that his bugaboo came back to bite him. Like the
Yeah.
year before, healthy. Luzardo had a great year. Last year, more of the same. And
if he's healthy, like you said, man, my God.
Right. One,
Yeah.
he was one of those guys who liked being in Miami. He's from the Miami area.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to necessarily be traded or leave the Marlins. He would have preferred to have stayed there. But, in the Marlins case, when you can get a guy, when you can get assets for a guy who isn't going to be there, I guess for whatever rebuilding window this is for the Marlins, it's like 962 time they've rebuilt or done whatever they're going to do down there in Miami. I don't think anybody really knows, but for them, good trade as well, because Luzardo's not going to be there, when it matters for them to win. So I like that deal for both sides as well. Let's see, scrolling through here, trying to find, and the Mets did re-sign Sean Manaea. He had a resurgent year himself, taking it back to his A's days when he was very solid. In fact, kind of sneaky good last year for Manaea. He was in San Francisco the year before, kind of buried. He complained about them misusing him. They would only let him throw few innings at a time, used him more as kind of they had an opener for him a lot. I will agree that they used him in a very odd way. And then, the Mets used him more as a traditional starter, and he flourished last year. 3 years for $75 million cash in, homie. I don't know if that's gonna pan out. Like, I don't know that I would have given him $75 million. But if you're the Mets who have spent this offseason hauling in the biggest fish in Juan Soto, but that rotation is still kind of a question mark, considering while not a huge producer, they lost not Trevino, but from New York that ended up signing with the A's.
With the A's for
for way too much money. But they obviously they've dealt away guys recently, and if there's a question mark in New York, it's with the starting rotation. So I guess for them to kind of keep some continuity from last year's rotation, they didn't get any of the rumored names that they'd been in on, either through trades, which I guess could still happen, or through free agency. So this is one of their bigger signings, but solid enough for the Mets.
Yeah.
That's
a great deal.
Money. I'll let them deal with that.
No, it's a good deal. I mean, verbal retweet on that.
Right. And speaking of guys that are trying to rebuild their value over the gig, Walker Buehler did not, although at the end of the year there kind of refound his mojo there in the World Series and down the stretch and pitched really well for the Dodgers, helping them win that World Series. Could not find the offer he was seeking or the deal, so he ends up signing a 1-year deal with the Red Sox, $21 million for him. Not a bad 1-year prove it deal for him. I like this deal a lot.
I freaking love
this
it.
Type of deal that the Red Sox should have signed more often than not, instead of trying to get injury prone guys in there and signing them to super long deals. So your thoughts on Walker Buehler headed to Beantown?
Absolutely love it. I mean, a hell of a deal. And I mean, if you watch Walker Buehler in the World Series, dude was fantastic. I mean, he closed it down, to win it for him. Man, if that's the guy that Boston's getting, then, hell of a job by Boston. I mean, they needed to get a guy too, and they did. I mean, Walker Buehler, I know he's had, he's had the unfortunate, battle with Tommy John, it seemed like a few times, but
Mike pointing out that a $21 million prove it deal is absolutely bananas. Like, I mean, you definitely had to pay to get the player, but if you're Walker Buehler, I mean, you stand to make much more. Going back into free agency, and honestly, if Walker Buehler had came back and been the Walker Buehler, we'd be talking about him closer to $30 million.
Exactly. So this is honestly to me, it's a deal for him. I mean, it's not a
no, I mean, I think
overpay.
Right,
Yeah.
I think it's a fair deal for both of them. But yes, the idea that $21 million is just handed over to guys, prove it deals used to be when we were growing up. Prove it deals used to be like vet minimum.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Now these guys get prove it deals, and they're being paid among the highest in the sport. So good for Walker Buehler. And I like what Boston has started to put together there. This 1 year turnaround with things that look kind of like rudderless and kind of aimless there in Boston. They've made some moves this offseason. I like what they're kind of putting together there.
I do too. And there's one deal that I'm waiting to see what happens. And if it's Bregman that goes there, man, they're in really good shape.
Yeah.
If they trade for Arenado, which that has been another one that that has been rumored, man, I don't know. Like I ain't feeling that one.
Yeah, I don't like Arenado to Boston, but I do like the Bregman idea. If they get Bregman and they've locked down Buehler and kind of straightened things out there, I like this team to challenge in the American League East. I don't know about challenging. Because right now, if I had to pick today, I'd say that the Yankees are the favorite to win the division. So I think that Boston and Baltimore are competing neck and neck for that number 2 spot right about now, especially if Boston gets Bregman. Like, I'll give the Orioles the edge today, but they've kind of sat on their hands this offseason too.
I don't know. That loss of Corbin Burns, man, that's going to sting.
But, and we hadn't talked about that. We'll get that in just a second. But that is going to sting. But I think it's more so their refusal to move off any of those prospects to maybe trade for them. It's because I get it if you don't want to pay Corbin Burns what Corbin Burns ended up making, that's fine.
Yeah,
but they have the assets to be able to trade to get just about anybody. Like, they have one of the better farm systems. And here's my thing really with the Orioles that I don't know if we've talked about this on the show or not, but they got that new owner, and that new owner was supposed to come in and spend money, and things are supposed to be different, and the Orioles have done nothing. Like, if I'm a Baltimore fan, I'm looking around with my palms to the sky like, what the hell are we doing? We went and traded for Burns, and okay, we didn't like what he got paid. That's fine. Again, Burns is fair. He's well enough off. But if you don't want to pay $30 million, I get that. But they've done nothing. They've brought in nobody, and they're poised to lose Santander.
Charlie Morton is going to be your guy that you bring in. But here's the thing, though. There's one deal that has been rumored about: Luis Castillo.
Yeah. I mean, there's still time for.
They've got the pieces that the Mariners need offensively. That's a perfect trade partner right there, man. Like, those two, it's almost like lock them in a damn room and make them figure it out. Like, it's perfect. It is a perfect, deal sitting out there.
Yeah, well, because Seattle has pitching and Baltimore has hitting, they do line up very nice
it is,
as far as their farm systems and what their strengths are.
And to bring in Luis Castillo, you know exactly what you're going to get from him.
Sure.
Make it happen, man. Like, but again, like I said, you're poised to lose Santander. That's going to be a tough, that'll be a tough loss.
Yeah, I would hate for Baltimore to take a step back. Like, it feels like they've had a lot of momentum going on this rebuild, and for the most part, they've done the right things. And last year, this time, it's like, hey, we got Burns, we're going for it. Like, we're in. And you lose Burns, you haven't replaced him. Okay, like, what are we doing here? If you're Baltimore, like, don't lose this momentum. Like, don't take a step back in your rebuild and delay things another year. Like, the time is now to make moves if you're Baltimore. Like, you spent all the time rebuilding and acquiring all these guys and developing them in your system. You either got to trade them or bring him up and play him every day. And if you're not going to play him every day, then you can't bring him up and use them as part-time guys. Like, it's time to get moving on these guys. So
exactly,
I
that
need to
window's
see
open, man.
Baltimore.
That window is open.
And I need as many challengers as possible to take care of New York, damn it. Like, come on. No. Like, the AL East cannot just be a cakewalk for New York to just waltz into the playoffs. I mean, we saw it. It's like, the things aligned, and they get one of the easiest playoff roads of having to face Cleveland and Kansas City. Like, no. I need somebody in that division to step up and consistently put pressure on New York to either force them, into a wild card spot so they've got to fight harder, or out of the playoffs completely if they should stumble and age really is a factor. So Baltimore, let's go, damn it. Detroit, another team trying to move along their rebuild. They inked Gleyber Torres, the former Yankee, 1 year, $15 million. Gleyber was out there on the free agent market. He took a lot of crap in New York over the last entirety of his career. I'm not really sure. Every now and then New York picks a guy that just, no matter what he does, they aren't going to like him, and then you see the collapse of that guy, just his confidence and everything that can go wrong does go wrong. I mean, it seemed like every single offseason it was they're going to try to trade Gleyber Torres. They're going to try to trade Gleyber Torres. And their Gleyber Torres was he finishes out his Yankee tenure finally, unceremoniously walks away, ends up in Detroit, which go there and, there's no expectations. There's no, the media is not going to be all on you. I like Detroit. That's a good spot for Gleyber Torres. I
hope he tears it up.
I honestly, I do. I hope he blows up. I hope that everything that New York thought that he was going to be finally materializes in Detroit, and that, he gets the last laugh.
Yeah, because they do, like you said, they pick one player, and it's they unceremoniously shit all over him for an entire,
the entirety of their career.
Yeah, their entire career.
They run out of town somehow.
And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what the hell did this guy do? And then, he's just getting verbally murdered each and every freaking day there. And I'm like, man, I never understood it. But this is a good, it's a solid deal for Detroit. 1 year, what the hell? Why not? Again, a so-called prove it deal, for 1 year, $15 million. Okay.
No long-term commitment, no strings attached if you're Detroit, and heck, if you're Detroit and he does ball out, trade deadline, you flip him.
I was just gonna say, boom, gone.
Yeah,
Trade New York.
And if he should be helping you like you hope, Detroit, they're right there.
Exactly.
If they're ready to take off, he could be one of those missing pieces to really solidify this offense, make it more consistent. And then you got something there in Detroit brewing where they can start putting more pressure on the top of that division. So like the move for them. And I think, just to put a wrap on it, going back on why New York hates them, I think it is just the curse of the last couple of infielders there in New York that the Yankees fans got spoiled on with Jeter and Cano, and even if you take it back to what's his name that they ended up trading to the Cubs forever ago. And then he signed that big deal with the Nationals.
Yeah.
Totally but it just, they had those middle infielders that, either you were Jeter and over there and godlike, or Cano pushing for 40 home runs. And Torres was supposed to be in that similar mold and just never kind of was that guy, and he basically got vilified for not being that guy. The guy that the projections put on him. Like, that
never understood it, man. Just let the guy go out and play baseball.
Yeah,
and he would have been just fine. If they just let him go, he'd have been fine.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed that he was unsuccessful in his time there.
Of course
the Dodgers bringing back a new former for about 5 minutes friend, and Teoscar Hernandez after the 1 year prove it deal. See, kids, 1 year prove it deals can turn into all the money that you've ever dreamed of, or the money that you at least felt you deserve. Teoscar had signed that 1 year deal late in free agency last year, real late. Dodgers got a deep discount on him because he stayed out there so long. But this year, 3 years, $66 million. That's Dodgers doing Dodger stuff. as is an easy call for both sides to get that deal done. I feel like.
Yeah, he got paid exactly what it was kind of expected. I mean, he wanted to go back.
They wanted him back clearly, right?
Exactly, yeah.
This is one of those no-brainer signings. It's just like, yes, okay. And then we got to probably, I'm going to say the shocker of the offseason because nobody had it coming. We mentioned Corbin Burns' name. Yeah. We mentioned that he's no longer in Baltimore, and that's because he signed with the Diamondbacks. And Corbin Burns had sat out there for a while. There wasn't a whole lot of noise. And then Soto got signed. And then Max Fried got signed. And you kind of started seeing the names come off the board. And it's like, well, where's Corbin Burns going to end up? Because he was supposed to be the top, free agent pitcher. And you heard the numbers. And the Orioles kind of were out. But at not any single point did Arizona's name go out. And under like the thievery of night, like everything I've ever remember correctly, I woke up to this news because it happened at like 3:00 in the morning our time.
Yeah.
They literally did it on the cover of Darkness out there in Arizona. Corbin Burns, 6 years, $210 million, and he gets an opt-out after 2. I don't know how this deal isn't good for both sides. Like, Corbin got his money. And the Diamondbacks, who are 1 year removed from being the National League champions, now have their ace of staff. Oh, wait, but they already had a couple of aces on their staff, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, Corbin Burns at the top of that rotation, they've got to be heavy favorites to get back into contention and be in the conversation there in the NL West. I don't think that they're making the Dodgers nervous. But if I was everybody else in that division, I would be on notice by what the Diamondbacks have done, because the Diamondbacks have done what the Orioles should be doing, and that's making moves to like win now while they've got the window.
Exactly.
Despite losing a Christian Walker,
replace him.
Like they might have gotten better.
It's insane. Like you said, they go out there and they lose Christian Walker, but they bring in Josh Naylor. Okay, there we go. A suitable replacement. Not as good, but you're not dropping, far back in that, in that position there. So what do? You go out and you get your ace, and it's like, my God, like I remember I was getting ready to go to the gym when I woke up, my alarm went off, and I remember looking at it, and then I remember texting you like, what the hell just happened? Like, and then it was like, you woke up, you saw it, and you're like, Jesus, like here we go, and it was just kind of back and forth. We're like, what? Like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure I had to have missed something. Like, I did. I missed the official trade going down for Naylor ending up there in the desert. So I quickly was going through like, maybe I missed rumors about Arizona. Maybe there was something that pointed here, but no, it was very much a quiet deal. I know. Kudos to both sides for getting it done. It's a win-win. I don't see anything wrong with the deal. I know that, people don't like paying pitchers over $200 million, but it's the cost of doing business. And if you're Arizona in a situation like this, the last time you had a window open and you went out and signed the best free agent pitcher on the market, it led to, a couple World Series.
Yeah.
So if you're Arizona hoping to recapture lightning in a bottle and recreate the magic of the Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling days, because that's, that based on what they have on their roster right now, this is probably the best overall team on paper that they've put out there since those days.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with that.
So, that pretty much put a bow on the top end of this free agent class. So like I said, we did have Soto signing and Max Fried and now Burns and all the rest of the ones that we've mentioned kind of triggering. So it's just kind of like the fill-in point at this point. The Orioles did end up signing Charlie Morton, former Brave. They got him for a year and $15 million. Little bit of a pay cut there for Chuck, who made $20 million the last couple of years with the Braves. But shockingly enough, everybody thought he was going to retire. He's still chugging along, so he'll be able to mentor all of the people who were barely born or not born when he started playing baseball there in Baltimore, because they've got so many kids. My God. And then another one that we're going to spend some time on, because it was a head scratcher for both of us, and I don't know I don't know if I've met a Reds fan yet who can make heads or tails of the fact that early in the offseason, they ship out, and we talked about it on this show, you ship out Jonathan India for Brady Singer. Cool. Made sense. We
hell of a deal. Love it.
Yeah, it had been rumored for a while that, that they've been trying to, move on from India just for not for lack of the liking the player and whatnot, but just a numbers game and just wasn't really a spot for him any longer. But then the Reds went out and traded for Gavin Lux from the Dodgers, which is a second baseman who has limited ability to move around the field. And while he once had a good pedigree as a prospect, he spent most of the last couple of years staying hurt. Tore his ACL 2 seasons ago. Last year came back, was slow out the gates, disappointing. Now, I will say, he did catch fire later in the season last year quietly, because again, on the Dodgers, you've got so many other names. So it's like, but if you go back and look at his stats down the stretch, Gavin Lux was actually kind of a little bit of a boost for that offense when they were struggling with injuries, and quietly put up some decent numbers. I don't know what that means here in Cincinnati. I don't know if he's going to continue that. I know the Reds certainly hope he will, but it's just a weird trade after you get rid of Jonathan India.
It is because the Reds are still in need of a right-handed power hitting outfielder. So you go and you trade for a left-handed Jonathan India. I don't get it. I like the deal because I do like Gavin Lux.
Sure.
But what are you doing? I don't. This has been a really weird offseason for the Reds. From all the good they did early on, they're sitting on their hands now. And then they go out and they make a move by bringing in Gavin Lux. I do think he's going to hit well in Great American because everybody does. But, you're going to see his power numbers, tick up a little bit. I want to say last year he hit, 10 home runs last year. I mean, he's got the potential, to hit 20, 25 home runs, for the Reds next year. I don't know what's going to go on. Like, to me, none of this makes any sense. Again, we talk about it because you've got, Elly De La Cruz. To me, his best position is third base. Matt McLain should be your shortstop. There was talk of Matt McLain playing out in the outfield now. There's talk of Gavin Lux playing, second, short, third, outfield. I don't get it. And none of this makes sense. Again, this is a deal that I kind of feel like, Nick Krall was just like, well, we got to make a move. And I don't know. I really don't. I don't understand this one by any means. Again, like I said, you traded Jonathan India at the beginning of the offseason, a deal that I loved, bringing in a solid pitcher in Brady Singer. And then, again, you just go out and you get a left-handed version of that. When you're right now, at this point in time, you are looking for a right-handed power outfielder. I don't get it, man. I really don't. I mean, versatility is, he doesn't really have that as much. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, Mike also pointing out it's head scratching, but that Lux was $2 million cheaper than India, so you save $2 million there. But overall, yeah, it doesn't address the need, and it's weird. I mean, I guess the logic is you didn't necessarily want to get rid of India, but to bring in Singer, you have to trade India, and then you need to refill that hole, and they didn't like anything internally. But I don't know, like, what's the point of having, getting back off of, maybe they have no confidence in McLain coming back off of injury. That's the only thing that I can think of, because I thought for sure the reason to get rid of him is like, you got McLain coming back, like, you don't need India, second base is filled. Like, yeah, like where do you really slot Lux in? I don't know.
And that's the thing.
That being said, it's Tito. Like, Tito was probably going to figure it out. Like,
but here's the thing, though, too. On the flip side, But Tito's coming back out of retirement for what? For this? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't. I mean,
well, I mean, to be fair, he had to know what he was getting into. I mean, you know,
but I think he was probably like,
Cincinnati.
well, shit, let's make a couple moves here that are going to really improve this ball club. They haven't made those moves that are really going to improve the ball club. You know what I'm saying? I guess that's my problem. Like, Nick Martinez, boom, I'm all for it. Jose Trevino, I'm all for it. You've got some of these guys that have to step up, but I mean, you got to have outfield depth. I mean, go out and get a Taylor Ward. Go out and get a Luis Robert. Like those are guys that you've got to bring in. I mean, you've got to make what's that?
Difference makers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that the Santander is still out there too, if they
I mean, I wanted Teoscar. I thought Teoscar would have been perfect here. But I mean, obviously that was never, and I mean, Santander's going to, he's going to require more than what the Reds are willing to pay, but make it happen. Like, you've got 3 years with Tito. 3 years. So go for it. I mean, there's so much talent on this roster that, with one solid piece in terms of an Anthony Santander, but here's the problem, though, is Santander is probably going to be a DH the next, year or two. He's on the older side of things. So, in my opinion, go out and get a Luis Robert. Trade, make a trade. If you got to go out, if Nick Lodolo has got to be part of that package, I mean, I wouldn't trade some of the big guys. Like, I mean, the Chases are going to be off the table, in my opinion. Cam Collier, I don't know. I don't know if I would do it, but some of these other guys, man, make it happen. I mean, I don't understand. It's like this organization. It seems like,
and there it is, Mike pointing out 3 years with Tito, 3 years left with LA. This is absolutely the window, and this is the time to push the chips in, especially if you know that this rebuild is coming again. Like once these guys all start getting off their rookie deals, or maybe a year before, if things really go sideways, this is it. Like, and to your point, I mean, Tito ain't getting any younger, and he came out of retirement, so that. 3 years is about as best you can hope for, win, lose, or draw. Like, I mean,
they went out and got the top manager available. That was, and I mean, that move right there, just bringing in Tito alone, was a shock to the baseball world. The Reds went out and brought in Tito Francona. Awesome, like that was unbelievable. That shouldn't be the only thing you do now. Like, that's not enough to get, this team over the hump. It's not. In a division that is so damn winnable, you got to go out and make these moves. Elly De La Cruz is not coming back here. He's not re-signing here. So, with that being said, you have to go out and you have to maximize the time we have with them. And you've got to go out and you got to spend that money. I don't know. It drives me freaking up a wall the way this organization handles some things. I mean, here is your chance. 3 years with a surefire Hall of Famer as your manager, and with a complete and absolute budding superstar in Elly De La Cruz. You've got Matt McLain, who, when he's healthy, he's an unbelievable baseball player. You've got guys that in terms of like Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion String, guys that can really step up and play baseball and hit the ball hard and hit the ball all over the place. There's so much young talent on this roster, man. Like, go out and get yourself a solid, power hitting player to supplement that lineup. I mean, what are you doing? Oh, it drives me nuts, man. Drives me nuts.
Well, I mean, at least your team's doing things. Braves have done nothing, so there's that. Still waiting for that first move of the offseason. I mean, hey, Athletics, they extended Brent Rooker. Athletics got to give somebody their money.
See, that's a guy right there that I would have traded for. I would trade for Brent Rooker right now.
Well, I think that the A's would have been more than happy to trade a Brent Rooker, but all reports are that they've been asking for an absolute haul. ever since the trade deadline last year, or
Yeah.
just before the trade deadline, when it was looking like that he was their biggest trade chip. They're asking for a haul, and then they extend him. It's still a reasonable deal. 5 years, 60 million. He could end up with 6 years, 90 million. But again, we talked about the A's. They don't have much method of doing anything this offseason other than just throw money at people because the Players Association is about to file a grievance against them for not spending money. So, I mean, smart move on extending Rooker, but this is totally just a gun to their head type situation where they got to do something with this money, and they're not going to find too many people out there on the market that are willing to take it, even if they overpay by a whole lot. Not overpaid is Justin Verlander. He ends up in San Francisco, which is
another what the hell?
Another head scratch of the offseason. Both of us texting each other, it confuses all hell.
We were like, what the hell just happened?
As the president of baseball operations, and we've kind of been, just joking about like, well, they get things turned around, and Buster, who we both respect, even though this is his first go around as a GM. He's made some interesting moves. This one, though, I don't understand it from either side. I don't really know why the Giants would want a Justin Verlander for 1 year. I don't really know why Justin Verlander would want to go spend what is most certainly one of his last years, if not his last year, in San Francisco. I don't know. This is going to be one of
name.
This is going to be one of those weird ones that like years from now, when we're talking about Justin Verlander, it'll be like, oh yeah, remember that? Remember when he pitched for the Giants? Like, oh yeah, that's right, he did pitch for the Giants at the very end. Like, kind of like Randy Johnson. You're like, oh yeah, that's right, Randy Johnson did end up in San Francisco. Completely forgot about that. Just a very nothing deal. There was kind of some intrigue of where Verlander might end, but ending up in San Francisco is a very blah type of move. That for the most part, that kind of wrapped things up. But the most recent signing of them all is where we're going to move next, because the next topic after we move out of this is teams and not doing anything. And I've mentioned how the Braves have been, but the Braves are strategically, I hope, sitting on their hands, not doing anything because deals haven't come to them and things just haven't worked out to their favor, seemingly. The Blue Jays, on the other hand, it's just been a nightmare of an offseason. If last season was a kick to the groin because they didn't get Shohei, and we all thought, everybody in the world thought for about 12 hours that Shohei was on his way to Toronto through means of a private plane to sign with the Blue Jays, this offseason has been 10,000 times worse, because they, like the Giants before Buster Posey got there, can't find a single person to take their money. Now, they did get somebody to take their money, and that being right-handed relief pitcher Jeff Hoffman, who was at the back end of the Phillies bullpen this past season. 3 years, $33 million. But that's not the real story. The real story is that today we found out that Jeff Hoffman failed not one, not two, but up to possibly 3 or 4 different physicals with teams before finally signing with Toronto, which good for the other teams for catching it, but makes you wonder what in the hell's going on with Toronto, and why is it still being allowed to go on when they couldn't give away their money to anybody. And now we find out that the only guy that they've been able to bring in was red flagged by at least 3 other franchises. You follow Toronto. Tell me what the hell is going on in Toronto.
They need pitching. And
why
not pay for it? Like I saw that and I was like, oh, great, Jeff Hoffman to the Jays. And I looked, and then I sent you that screenshot from. Was it? I forget who it was.
It was Mark Bowman. It was Mark Bowman.
Yeah, Mark Bowman.
Yeah. Who initially reported, that was the initial report, is that the Braves would have done something to answer your question, Mike. Mike asking, would we rather your team just do nothing or make random moves for the sake of making moves? No, I do not think that I would rather have my team just making random moves. But if you're a team that's expected to make moves, doing absolutely nothing for the most part for the offseason, and it being now, halfway through January almost, is a little alarming as well. Like, I don't want them to do either of those things. But the Blue Jays, I mean, this move is it's not good. Not good, Bob. Assuming that Hoffman's healthy, they actually got a great deal.
Exactly.
And if he can somehow sneak him through with all 3 years with limited injury, then bully for Toronto. They got, they made a good signing. But I got to believe that if 3 other franchises say thanks, no thanks, and those reported franchises being the Braves, who need back-end help and are a contender, the Orioles, who need back-end help and are a contender, and I forget who the third and fourth teams were or I think that Toronto was actually the 4th team, but I forget who the 3rd team was. But again, it was the Mets. I think it was the Mets, actually. The Mets had brought him in there and flagged his medicals. It just a nightmare scenario if you're Toronto, who has had. This is what happens. You have what seemingly is a window that's wide open. Cincinnati, we're looking at you, or a window that at least looks like, hey, this is your chance, and you scuttle it away because you don't make the right moves, or you make a bunch of the wrong moves, or don't make any moves, and you end up like Toronto, where now we're wondering, are they going to be able to sign Vladimir Guerrero to any type of extension? Signs are pointing to no from both Vladdy's camp and the fact that,
$100 million apart.
Yes, the reports are that they are $100 million apart. That the Blue Jays at some point offered 10 years for $350, and that Guerrero's camp laughed at them and said, "You're about $100 million away from a starting point." But this is Toronto's fault, because they waited until the offseason when Juan Soto. Everybody knew Juan Soto was going to get the bag this year. Everybody knew that Shohei Ohtani last year was going to get the bag. And we all watched as Toronto sat there and said, hey, we've got a Shohei budget, while also not re-signing our own superstar. I mean, at this point, if you're Vladimir Guerrero, even if they can come up with the funds, why would you want to stay? Like, it's just been it's been a shit show, and they haven't done anything but more or less disrespected you, kind of, sort of, right? Like, I mean, if they offer you $100 million less, and you see that they had a specific budget for Shohei where they were willing to push $700 million, and you come in $100 million under what I think I'm worth, or what the market will probably dictates is worth, and he's only a year away from free agency. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. If I'm Guerrero, I don't want anything to do with it. Now you have to overpay me to stay. That's the way I look at it. If I'm Guerrero,
you done pissed me off,
right?
So now here's the thing. I've told you this. I mean, you know my feelings. I absolutely despise the Jays front office and the ownership group and Rogers. I can't stand them. I don't understand. They are the only team in Canada. They represent that entire country. They've got every single benefit, in terms of a team. They've got it all. And yet they continue to fumble it each and every damn year. I don't understand it. Why Vladdy was not re-signed a year or two ago? What happened there? Why Bo Bichette was not re-signed a year or two ago? You're going out there and you're just throwing money at whatever you can to bring him in. Makes zero sense. And now it's reported today that they're finalists for Roki Sasaki. What the hell? What the hell are you doing?
And that leads us right into our next subject.
Screw it. I'm jumping right into the next.
No, you're good. I get it. And the transition is fine, because the question is, Roki Sasaki, one of the next big thing coming in from Japan, who we knew was going to come down to these last few days of his posting. It was reported that because of the international pool money flipping over and the resets for trading and all that stuff, that this was the window in which he would be signing. Well, today all the suitors have been narrowed down, and Sasaki has finalized his 3 suitors as the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, and the Padres. And when you hear those 3 teams, you say Dodgers is probably where he's going to get up. No brainer with everybody that they've brought in there and all the Japanese players that are currently on their roster, big names and otherwise. the Padres, who have made lots of moves in the international market and competed for, it could have very easily knocked the Dodgers off last year in the playoffs had things gone their way, just one or two ways in a couple of those games in the playoffs. And then the Blue Jays. I can't make sense of why the Blue Jays are in this conversation, why Sasaki would be mildly interested in them. But hey, if you're the Blue Jays, you're thanking the stars that you're in the conversation. You're in the final three, but finishing second or third again in a sweepstakes like this just goes to prove that, you're that much farther away than anybody thinks. Like,
I mean, what if
you sign that, and then if he signs there, then what? Then you have Sasaki and an unsigned Vladdy. If you're Vladdy, what does that signal? That they were more willing to wine and dine this import and this 23-year-old than they were taking care of business with you. But also, if he is this talent that everybody suspects that he is, this could be the beginnings of a quick turnaround in Toronto if they get the right pieces in place. But I don't know, like, which way are you going if you're the franchise of the GM? If you sign Zach, it's like catching the car if you're the dog, but not really knowing what you're going to do with it.
Exactly. That is a great way to put it. Because then they've also been connected all offseason to Anthony Santander. Okay? That's another higher priced free agent. Why? Like, if you can't take care of your own, again, you have a superstar in Vladdy. What do you like? You're $100 million apart on a contract extension there. It's not just like 20, 25 million, maybe 10 at the, no, you're $100 million off. How in the hell does that happen? I mean, that is just unbelievable to me. So then, okay, now you're in on Roki Sasaki, the probably one of the, the most coveted, Japanese import, this 23-year-old flamethrower. Like, what are you doing? I mean, there's none of this is making any sense whatsoever. So what it's going to come down to is, Toronto's going to be once again the bridesmaid. They're not going to be the bride in this. They're not going to get any of these guys. And then what's going to happen in the trade deadline? Boom, Vladdy's gone. Bo's going to be gone. All these dudes are going to completely have to. I mean, it's going to be. Just a smorgasbord of guys being dealt out of Toronto, and all those guys are going to be like, thank God, get me out of here, because none of this is what I signed up for. Again, there is no reason Toronto should be in the position they're in right now. Now, last year, they vastly underperformed. But, again, it never should have got to that point. Those pieces, they never should have even been thinking of an Ohtani budget or, this unicorn budget that they've got for, Juan Soto as well. Why? Just go out and make the moves that are going to improve your ball club and go from there. Don't just sit there and have $700 million set away for a superstar, but then you don't get him and then you're just not going to spend it. Well, what the hell? Like,
that made absolutely no sense.
Yeah, that's why I hate this. I hate that front office.
To publicly acknowledge that you have the funds and you have the budget and you're okay with spending on these two guys, which I get, and anybody should, like any organization in baseball should be trying to spend those guys or spend money on those guys. But if you announce that you have that money for those guys, then it is reasonable to assume as a fan and just from the outside looking in that, well, okay, you're not gonna spend all that money on then a single guy or just a couple of guys, but you'd think that $700 million unicorn budget could have been nicely spent over 5, 6, 7 guys.
Holy hell, my God!
You could have signed 3 or 4 guys in this free agent class alone.
Yes, exactly.
And I know there's a struggle when it comes to getting people to come to Toronto and take the money. Like they are going through a bit of a struggle with
You've got to overpay,
wanting to go there. Yes. But
I
that
get
shouldn't.
that.
But you know what? That's a product of your environment sometimes. And sometimes that just has to be what it is. You got to
Those are the cards
overpay,
you're dealt.
right? And then you've got to
deal with it.
overpay to get into the game and stay there. I mean, it's been talked about a lot, and the rebuild with the Nationals. Not that I'm following it closely, but it's just like they talk about how they're rebuilding this team and how when they did it the last time, they had to go out and overpay for Jason Worth. And everybody was like, what the hell are they paying Jason Worth for? And it makes no sense. Yeah, and it makes no sense. Yeah. And it's like, hey, you're bringing in this guy and his team for the young guys. Well, they did have to overpay because they couldn't get people to take their money to come to Washington. But you know what that led to? A World Series championship. Exactly. Because eventually that piece turned into other pieces that, then built the confidence in those guys to then, make the moves and do the things. And it was all part of this big grand plan. It might not necessarily work out every time, but if you're Toronto, what else do you've got to lose? You give that money to Vlad, and then you go and you fill in around him. And whether that's keeping Bo or trading Bo to get pieces that fit better around him, whatever it may be. Yes. But you spend the money and you make things happen. Like, I don't understand how Toronto has let it get to this point where you, like, seriously, 3 years ago, it's like, wow, Blue Jays, it's looking like they're going to be in the conversation the next 5-6 years minimum because of the age of all these guys and where they're at. And now just as quickly, it's like, yo, this thing looks like it's going to be torn all apart.
It's going to be torn to hell, literally at the trade deadline. And just because they're not going to get anything, they're not going to get it figured out.
In the fantasy world where they do sign Sasaki, to me, it would be the ultimate pimp my ride move. And you know what I mean by that? Hey, we're going to come in here. We're going to turn this piece of shit beater into a badass looking car. Hey, you're going to change the engine or anything that makes this piece of shit go? Nope, but it's going to look real nice.
It's going to be a beauty, Clark.
It's going to have an arcade in the dash, but it's also going to overheat when you pull out of the parking lot because the internal guts are for shit. And that's what it would be if they signed Sasaki. It's like, oh, wow, that's a great signing, and it would be amazing to watch his career on this absolute dog shit of a team that he's going to be surrounded with when they either tear it all down by hook or by crook. Like, it'll just be him, the last man standing, which is why at the end of the day, I can't imagine. I'm shocked that they made it to the final three, but I can't see a scenario where he ends up there. Like, I am praying against all hope that he ends up in San Diego.
I know.
He's still let him go to LA.
Oh my God.
Otherwise, this could have been done 2 months ago when they posted him and we all knew he was going to go to LA. Don't sit here and cock tease us for 2 months.
Well, bingo.
Like, we knew he was going to LA 2 months ago.
But it's bad when I sit there and I sit back and, going back to the Blue Jays, that I'm sitting here and I know damn well I could do a better job of running that organization than what, is currently in place right now. I guarantee I could step in right now and build that team into a contender. It's not hard. It's not hard. You gave me the blessing of $700 million. All right, well, can I utilize that $700 million to build us a winner? Great, done. Well, now it's too late because all these prize free agents are gone. Well, the majority of them. But, I mean, there is literally no excuse for the Blue Jays to be where they are right now. Not one excuse. And that's what, like I said, I've said it before on the show, that when Alex Anthopoulos left, man, I was like, oh, my God. That nightmare, worst nightmare right there. I freaking love the AA years in Toronto. And now it's gone downhill and they cannot get out of their own way. It's brutal to watch. And again, they've screwed this up again by, fumbling every opportunity that they get. And now it's going to be a complete teardown. Like I said, by the trade deadline, you're going to see Vladdy gone. Again, $100 million apart, dude's not going to want to come back. Like I said, you've pissed him off. It's just none of it makes any sense whatsoever. Just drives me nuts, man.
Well, before we get out of here, because we spent quite a bit of time catching up on things, we've got a
We
couple
did.
of miscellaneous
There's a
notes.
lot.
It was,
we,
no, it was.
we
I
were,
mean,
we were
take
far
a month
behind.
off. You take a month off, you miss a lot.
Boy, did we ever.
But one of my favorite stories of our time off, I did not watch this World Series. I refused. I boycotted. I sat it out. But I was not immune to hearing things that happened, and most notably, of all the things that happened in the World Series, the two asshole Yankees fans that interfered with Mookie Betts in New York and thought that they were some type of divine intervention and this was their calling and all this other nonsense. They were officially banned by Major League Baseball this week in all 32 Major League ballparks.
Amazing.
Which maybe it's only 31 because the Athletics are playing in a minor league ballpark. But all of the Major League ballparks, those two chuckle fucks that interfered with Mookie Betts and then wore it as a badge of honor afterwards.
I know.
All the interviews and, stood up there and, yeah, so what? What are you going to do about it? Well, Major League Baseball answered, and it's that you can't come to any of our ballparks for the foreseeable future. No time frame on that. Just ban hammer. See you later. I actually thought that this should have happened immediately. I'm not sure why it took so long to ban them. Like I said, the minute they came out and were brazen about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd have banned them immediately. Anyway, for the way they interfered because it was so brazen. But then to come out and just be bragging about it and again feeling like your being there had any influence. There's nothing worse than a fan that thinks what they do, the actions that they take, especially at the actual games, has any influence on the outcome and that they're helping the team. You're not helping the team throwing anything on the field. You're not helping the team by grabbing a guy if he comes in the stands or knocking or doing whatever petty little bullshit you think that helps your team win. It only makes you look like an asshole. In this case, it actually interfered with, the championship game of the sport that you claim to love. And it just makes you look like a general asshole. So don't do it. And I'm glad that MLB did go on ahead and ban these two, but should have been done sooner.
1,000%.
I'd have like I said, I'd have banned them the day after it happened.
I mean, seriously, yeah, exactly. I mean, because again, it wasn't like a misunderstanding or just an
incidental
or incidental
moment. Yeah. They did it on purpose.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, screw these dudes, man. Screw them. Right? They got exactly what they deserved.
Yeah, and final note, baseball has a problem with getting their product on TV in front of folks, and these regional cable deals over the last, 8 to 10 years, but really in the last 3 to 4 years, it's come to light and come to a head, and everything's kind of fallen apart to where the rights deals for all of the individual teams are all over the place. Some teams own their own rights, MLB owns a couple, and then these networks that folded owns more. Well, the Reds are now one of the teams that were kind of in limbo, and they'll be showing their games on what is this thing? Because when I saw it, I'm like, is that an app? Is that
FanDuel Sports Network?
Yeah, like FanDuel Sports Network. Is that through the betting app, or is that a whole new thing? Did FanDuel buy out the rights to one of these networks that folded, and they're just now the rights?
FanDuel, Bally Sports went to FanDuel. So
FanDuel's ones who ended up on it. And that's what I thought. I was like, I think I must have missed something where they're just now the rights holders. But when the news first came out, I'm like, wait a minute. So you're only going to be able to watch Reds games through like the FanDuel app, and I'm assuming regionally, like that sounds weird, but okay. So you'll be able to watch the Reds and because the Braves are under the same deal.
Yes,
I saw that they will also be having the Reds there was about 8 or 9 teams that were all in kind of the same boat when these things were going through, and were kind of left in the lurch. And the Reds and Braves, ironically, are 2 of those teams. So it doesn't impact me a whole lot. I just pay for the package, and being out of market, I don't miss anything. But I cannot wait for the day when all of this gets under one umbrella and gets taken care of, and Major League Baseball figures out a way to streamline this. So one, blackouts are a thing of the past. That's got to go. That's got to end. It cannot be a thing in baseball in the year 2025. It's got to end. And that two, you're able to see all the teams in one place and you don't have to jump around. Like, I mean, yes, you can, if you buy the MLB package, you presumably get all the games, but if you only want to watch, single teams, sometimes you now have to go to like 3 or 4 different places. And, a lot of times just in general, even if you are in the market, there's all sorts of weird boundary lines and stuff like that. Like you just got to stop making it so hard to watch baseball, for God's sakes, man.
Yeah.
Like, really
no, it's not hard.
That's
not hard.
That's as simple as that can be. So
yep. It ain't hard, man. It ain't hard at all.
Mike's saying that he felt the rage that he felt was indescribable when they signed this deal. And I gotta admit, I was frustrated with the way this whole thing went down, because I thought when these things, when the networks were folding and Bally was going to get into the picture, Mike's saying we ended our partnership with Bally Sports because now it's called FanDuel Sports Network. like we all kind of got excited. It was like, yay, this is going to be the end of blackouts and they're going to consolidate this and baseball's going to get it all under one umbrella and it's going to be streamlined. And instead they kicked the can down the road and it just got a new just got a new name, new coat of paint. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure though when this whole thing runs out, but it's soon, isn't it? Like when those deals finally are up.
Well, it's going to be interesting because once this collective bargaining agreement ends, after 2026 or 27?
I was just going to say, we're coming up on it. I thought 28 was when the deal officially expired, but we're one way or the other, the conversations and the talks are going to start happening soon because we're coming up on it.
Well, I mean, let's be real. We're going to have a work stoppage. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean,
you mean baseball's going to baseball again?
No, but in all seriousness, and I've heard it from, another couple other podcasts, but it's got to happen though, if you think about it. And we'll, it's another time for another show. But to basically reset the financials of this sport, it has to happen, so that way we're not getting a Dodgers, LA deferral Dodgers, situation each and every, offseason with a free agent where they're going to, it's just how it is. The sport's got to reset, and it's got to include, whether, I don't know, it might come down to a salary cap. I'm okay with that. Getting this TV thing figured out, that's got to be a big part of it. There's so much stuff that's got to get taken care of that we're probably going to miss out on a year of baseball, and it's going to suck, but we're at the point too to where it's, we're going to need it.
So you think a year though? I don't think it's going to get that deep in the weeds. I do agree.
Dude, there's so much more to get figured out, I think, this time than what.
Oh no, I mean, I don't disagree that there's a lot, but I have a feeling that it's not going to cost like a full year. Like I could see.
I hope you're right, but
I could see there being another really long off season. Like like we might get the start of spring training delayed, or like maybe even the start of the season itself. But I don't know about missing the whole year. Candidly, I don't know if baseball can survive missing a whole year. I really don't. Like, I don't think that it's in a spot. It's regaining momentum that they once had, and that's great. And the numbers are trending upwards, and the last couple of years have been a boon. But I think between not having some of that stuff figured out now, where everybody can watch it freely and all that stuff, and then you tell me you're going to take away the entire sport for a year, I think there's just a whole segment and generation of people that are just going to be done.
Might be the case, but I think if it's for certain reasons in terms of, like I said, of resetting the financial
right, but I mean,
financials of the game and getting some of this stuff lined up to where it's beneficial for everyone, I don't think it'll be as big of a deal as what you're thinking.
I get what you're saying, and from you and I being diehard baseball fans,
I ain't going anywhere.
Right, like, and we get it. Like, we understand that it needs a reset. But what I'm saying is, your casual fan, your fan,
yes,
the people that don't give a shit about the millionaires and the billionaires bickering and just want to see baseball being played and don't care about all that other stuff and how they collectively have gotten to the point where it needs to be kind of torn down and reset and reconfigured. Like that's on them. I think those people are just going to turn around and be like, you know what, I'm done with baseball. Like,
and that might be the case
completely this time. So I think that's why baseball and the players and all, like, they're going to be forced to come together and figure it out to not lose a whole year. I'm not saying we're not going to lose any baseball, but I can't imagine losing a year, because I would be scared for baseball if they decide to put the kibosh on an entire year and they can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I'm just going off of basically there's so much that's got to get figured out. And
I mean, at the end of the day, like, it'll probably be like a lot of it, and then they might get through 3/4 of that list, and then they'll just kick the can out.
I was gonna say, screw it, we'll do it in 2037. Like,
right,
oh, cool.
There'll be some concessions, and the players will screw themselves like they always do.
They can't help themselves.
Yeah, they'll hold out for all the money until they don't, and then they'll end up taking some bad deal, and they'll blame it on Tony Clark, and we'll be right back where we always are. Because you know why? Because baseball.
Because baseball. That's why. Why?
Because as much as I love this sport, man, it tries to shoot itself in the foot at every turn.
No sport is better at it. No sport is better.
No sport is better at killing its own momentum. That's for certain.
Oh, it's incredible. It is unbelievably amazing. God love it. God, baseball.
Hey man, it's back in a month. It's back in a month, and we don't have to worry about anything.
We got college baseball coming up in a month too.
Things are thawing out, man. It's signs of spring that we look for in the cold month of January. I'm over winter, especially after this last week, and I would be over this time of year anyway. When it comes to the off season in baseball, this is about the time I start feeling like that itch that, like, all right, like we've gotten past the holidays. That kind of keeps me occupied, and things go into the end of October, beginning of November now, but 2 months is good enough, and my attention is ready to be turned back on baseball. But hey, you know what else would be nice? If the Braves made a move, just something. Maybe they could find a guy who wasn't completely broken and throw some money out of that. That'd be special.
Oh hell yeah! But here's the thing, though, man, dude. 2025, man, we're rolling. Hey, big things are going to be coming for Backwards K baseball in 2025. We're gonna keep it rolling, man.
That's the goal. We're gonna be pushing things here, trying to get some more energy, inside stuff. And just trying to get more people on here to talk ball, which is what we love to do. So
heck yeah.
We have been discussing things behind the scenes, and again, this time of year it's slow going on that front because things are good. But once things get rolling, man, we are hoping to get rolling with them. But we appreciate you guys joining. We're happy to have you back. We're happy to be back. Happy 2025, y'all. Baseball's only a month away. For Chris, I am Scott, and this has been Backwards K. You can find us on all of your fine podcasting platforms. We're on Facebook. We're on X, Twitter, whatever the hell they're calling it these days. The Impact Sports Cincinnati Network and the Craft Brewed Sports Network as well. And you can always find our shows on YouTube. We go there live. We're here Mondays whenever Chris and I feel like it. It probably won't be a month this time before we get back. But it might be. You never know. But keep that dial tuned in. Be ready to go when we're alerted live. But any big moves, we'll be sure to hop back on here and get back in there. Like I said, baseball's only a month away, folks. We're as close as we're going to get from now. Countdown is on. For Chris, I'm Scott. This has been Backwards K. We appreciate you listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Good night, everybody.